City Current. Produced by Dakota Media Access. In-depth discussion with Bismarck and Mandan city officials. Watch on Government Access Channel 602 HD or tune in to Radio Access 102.5 FM. Always local, always current.
Welcome to City Current. I'm Mary Van Sickle here in the studios at Dakota Media Access. It's a Bismarck edition, so Jason Timonek is here as City Administrator for the City of Bismarck. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's 2025 for sure.
Middle of January, but this is the first I've seen you.
Yeah.
So, Happy New Year to you.
And the other thing to mention is that we are in program number 300 today.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you surprised me.
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
When you think about it, it's hard to believe that we've done 300 of these programs between you and Jim Neubauer and Mandan. It's
really, you've
kind
done
of amazing.
300, and Jim and I have
That's true.
kind of done half each.
Yeah, probably. So. Yeah, but it's great.
Cool.
As always. Thank you. And as always, we're here to talk about what happens at the City Commission meetings. Our intention is to kind of summarize a few things that we think are probably the most significant to citizens in the community. So we try our best.
We do.
You know, and I think we want to hit on a couple things today. Before the meeting started last night during the invocation, there was a very nice tribute to Officer Fuller, who is just passed away. He was with the Bismarck Police Department. We do have a picture of him that we can pop up, and really nice words that were shared.
Tremendous. Chaplain Greg Carr, of course, with the Crisis Care Chaplaincy, said some very heartfelt words, and Officer Fuller worked with Bismarck PD for over 21 years, and the last time I looked at the Bismarck Police Department's Facebook page where they had posted, it was close to 800 comments.
Wow.
And not a negative word anywhere. So if there's a gentleman that had an impact in this community, it was definitely him. And,
good humor.
And his role was outreach, working with students, crime prevention, just a face for the department in many, many ways. And I know he'll be missed in the organization and certainly around the police department.
Yeah, it was very sudden, too. He was only 50 years old, so that's condolences to the family.
To the family, and the chaplain did mention the service is Saturday at Century Baptist Church, I believe 11 a.m., and then burial at St. Mary's Cemetery following. And so no doubt that there will be a strong showing of support and you know, just again, thoughts to the family as they get through this one.
And to the Bismarck Police Department, I'm sure that they're feeling it as well. So moving into the business of the meeting last night, there was quite a large consent agenda we had going last night.
A lot more on the consent agenda than we did on the regular agenda.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
Couple things that were not pulled for discussion, one of them being from your community development department. They had a number of items. First one was a call for a public hearing in the Boulder Ridge area.
Right. The intersection of North Washington Street and 43rd Avenue. I say 43rd Avenue because everybody knows at Washington Street on the west side it's Ash Cooley, on the east side it's 43rd Avenue. So this is specifically the lots in the northeast quadrant of the intersection. And the request from the owners is to change the zoning. Currently the zoning is what we refer to as CA commercial. It's often a neighborhood commercial, something that is intended to really provide services to the area. But I think a lot of us would agree that this intersection is a big intersection. There's other commercial activities in the area. There's a few more lots that are waiting to be developed. And really what this does for the developer is it broadens the opportunities a little bit. Obviously, we've seen a delay in the development at this location, and I can't speak for what will be the final use here, but I expect that with this CG zoning, full-blown CG commercial zoning, it provides a few more land uses and options for a development in the end. And so the staff is supportive, the Planning Commission is supportive, and so this is step one of two at City Commission. In a couple of weeks, we'll have a public hearing and typically final action at that point.
As you say, it's a very visible location, a very busy area And
High profile, a lot of traffic, and it will only continue to
Right.
carry more traffic
So
as the rest of the corridors develop through there.
yeah, I'm sure others have this thought, and it's like, wow, look at this big vacant lot. I wonder what's going to happen here.
Yep.
So ripe for development, as they would say. So other call for a public hearing was over in the east area of Bismarck, just north of Divide Avenue, way far in the east. I think it's called Stein's 4th Edition. Okay.
Right over by the
Yeah.
Hay Creek Park area, and it actually is directly south of I-94. It's the kind of the terminus of 26th Street and the intersection of Capitol Avenue. There's 20 lots here on both sides of 26th Street. On the east side, many of the lots are owned by the Park District. That was actually land that was dedicated to the park, to the Hay Creek Park area. There's been some road work done and some improvements there, so those lots became viable lots for home construction. Property owners on the west side of 26th Street joined in this effort, and the request here is to change the zoning from R5, which is single family only, to R10, a conditional R10. And really what that conditional R10 would provide is the opportunity to do not just single family homes, but also twin homes. And so a little more density with a twin home, but obviously in a situation like ours where housing is
High
challenging at a premium right now, having more land use and building opportunities for those developers really opens up more doors for homeowners.
And I think townhomes or twin homes, as you call them, very big demand for that type of structure.
Yeah.
So this, again, call for public
Call
hearing.
for
This
public
come up in
hearing.
a couple of weeks.
Planning Commission was supportive, staff was supportive. There were some minor conditions on it, but I wouldn't anticipate any serious concerns here.
And the third call for public hearing from Community Development Department has to do with a property right in the middle of town. This would be just north of Avenue C, but again, way over on the east end.
Between 1st and 2nd Street. So this is just east of the Cathedral Historic District. And what we're dealing with here is actually a single parcel. At one time had 2 homes on it. And in the not too distant past, one of those homes burned and had to be condemned and destroyed. And subsequently, the other house on the property was demolished as well. And so what we have today is essentially a vacant lot, a blank canvas for some infill. And what the property owners are looking for here is some zoning that would allow multifamily. Instead of another home, just a single family home, the request is to go to RM30, which is the exact same zoning that is directly adjacent to the east and for many blocks thereafter. What RM30 does is it provides an opportunity for multifamily. It could be townhouses, twin homes, row house type situation. Obviously, we're not going to be talking about a 20-unit apartment on this small lot. It's
The
not that much.
documentation in your agenda called it small multifamily, which I thought was kind of a curious term, but you've explained it well.
It's a small lot, and it's not what you would expect for a typical 21st century apartment building.
Yeah.
It's going to have some unique characteristics to it, but it's a response to many of the different land uses in that neighborhood. You'll see a single family home, large historic, next to maybe a twin home or even some later apartments that have been added in there. So a nice mix of residential uses, and this will be another one to complement those.
And you mentioned that all of these projects, these 3 call for public hearings, have been gone through the Planning Commission already. Also, neighbors have been notified.
Correct.
They are notified before the Planning Commission, and they have an opportunity to come to the Planning Commission public hearing. So this has gone through a number of steps, but again, another public hearing will happen.
Part of the process that we have.
Yeah. Moving into another issue within the consent agenda. Now, this was pulled for discussion, as I recall. This
It
has
was,
to do
correct.
with HR department brought forward a salary proposal along with Public Works. They've got some challenges with fleet services and mechanics in particular.
Specifically mechanics. And for our audience that may remember, we recently addressed another challenging situation where we were struggling with employment, and that was at CENTCOM, our
Yeah.
911 dispatch.
I remember. Yep.
We made some pretty unique and kind of some bold changes there to help retain the staff that we have, but also to attract additional staff because the salaries just weren't competitive. that type of work was high stress, shift work. Situation here, we have a difficult time even attracting employees in this field. And what this field is, it's essentially a mechanic role, a large equipment mechanic, diesel mechanic. If you think about the fleet that the city of Bismarck has, we've got somewhere north of 400 pieces of equipment that are serviced, and it's everything from a fire truck all the way down to a lawnmower, street sweepers, snow removal equipment, general pickups, all of the police vehicles, oil changes, tire rotations, all of those types of things go through our fleet department. And when you look at the salaries in comparison to other places that have diesel mechanics and ASE certified mechanics, we're not competitive. And we're losing employees to those places. We're losing employees for higher salaries in other places. And I understand the need to be competitive here.
And competing with the state of North Dakota and their
Definitely.
needs, and the highway department in particular, but also private industry and private business as well.
Absolutely. And the discussion here was, we just got through the budget cycle. We're already making an adjustment to salaries. Is this a little premature? And Steve Solway, the director of service operations, explained that over a period of about 18 months, there has been a consistent vacancy. Yes, we've been able to hire some people, but then
Turnover.
within short weeks, someone leaves for another job at another location. And has it been the exact same person gone this entire year and a half? No, not at all. But the bottom line is there hasn't been full staff in a long time. And when you're dealing with the type of equipment that we have, that institutional memory is so important to be able to work on these pieces of equipment, to get them back out on the road to continue to provide those services.
I would assume that there's time issues here too. I mean, you can't have something down like a snowplow and for very long without things happening.
Yep,
so
absolutely. So in the end, Steve had proposed a number of different scenarios, and ultimately what will happen here is there will be a salary increase for the fleet technicians of about 12%, and that would be across the board. And then what does that do? It also opens the door to hire new employees at a higher rate, to maybe attract them towards that higher starting salary. And some might say, well, how are you going to pay for this? Well, the fleet division is what we would consider internal service. In other words, if you're the fire department and your fire truck is getting worked on, the fire department is paying the fleet service for that work.
Okay.
And we realize, yes, it's taking money from your left account, putting it in the right account, but it's how we do business to make sure that we are accounting things, we are booking things, we are charging things, and we are able to make decisions like this based on all of this information that we're collecting.
And that's why there's conversation also included rates. I was a little confused at the beginning too, going, what do you mean rates?
It would be our shop rate that we charge ourselves.
Departments have to
we
be
bill each other.
charged. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And our shop rate, if you look at, say you get your personal vehicle worked on at a shop in town, it's likely going to be $100 to $150 an hour. Our shop rate is much lower than that at this time. Okay. And it's not that we're trying to compete with local business, but we're trying to have a benchmark to understand what is the value of the work that we are doing here. If we were to go exclusively to the private sector for all of this work, the cost would go up and the turnaround would go down most likely. And it's not to say anything about the private sector couldn't do the work. That's not it at all. We get to prioritize our own equipment and make sure that during a snow event we do have all hands on deck to get those plows and graders and front end loaders back out on the street.
Okay. Well, makes sense. It was quite a lengthy discussion, and in general, the vote was to move forward on this.
Correct.
I think it was Commissioner Zenker who said he would like the airport employees, some of those people that work in the same area, to also be considered as well. There's
a similar work group at the the airport, and they're working on the equipment at the airport, not the airplanes, but the mowers, the small vehicles, but then primarily the snow removal equipment. Those fleet technicians are also the ones running the snow removal equipment down the runways, and so there's a similarity, but yet some complexities and some differences to that work. So some might say, well, why didn't you look at both at the same time? in the airport situation, the turnover hasn't been there. They've been fairly stable. They've been able to retain their staff.
But it doesn't mean it isn't going to be looked at. You
Correct.
do have the budget process starting pretty soon. And that
Yep.
was another question that popped in. Why are you doing this now? We're just starting the budget process in the next couple of months. Can't this wait? And I think it was Steve Solway, head of Public Works, who said, this is a problem. We have an immediate problem to deal with here.
If we were to wait and address it for the 2026 budget, it would be this time next year before we're making any changes.
Yeah, right.
So we're kicking the can for a year at that point and not really solving any of the immediate problems that we've just been talking about.
Right, okay. Well, again, move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Attract and retain talent, and this is what it means. You hear that a lot, and this is one way that the city is trying to remain competitive in the workforce.
well, and I don't think it's a foreign concept to private business, other organizations in the area, that wages have been adjusting up
Yep.
very quickly here. So, yeah. Moving into your regular agenda, there was a public hearing, and this has to do with, we talked about it a few weeks ago, emergency procurement thresholds had to be adjusted. Can you
Yep.
talk a little bit about that?
Due to inflationary factors, the time that we're in, the economics of things, we had to make some adjustments to allow directors a little more authority when it comes to emergency situations. And I'm not talking about a flood emergency, I'm talking about a piece of equipment that failed or some software that has gone down or something that would unintentionally disrupt their ability to do work. And a lot of times, in my mind, when I think about stuff like this, it would be a pump going out at the water treatment plant. They just don't have pumps on the shelf at the home store, not the pumps that we need anyway. So it would increase the director's ability. The threshold previously was 50,000. That number now doubles up to 100,000, and that would be for the director of Public Works, either the service side, which is Steve Solway, or the utility side, which is Michelle Closey. And then it would also increase the amount that the administrator can approve if the first threshold is exceeded, then the second threshold can go to the administrator. So my position would have a little more authority to say, yes, this is an emergency for these reasons. Go ahead and make this purchase. And then I have responsibility to notify the mayor and the commissioner that holds that portfolio, just so everybody's in the loop. Hey guys, we had a pretty big expense. It's an emergency situation. Here's the information. And then most likely at that next city commission meeting, we would put it on the consent agenda so everybody knows what's going on, pull all
What
the
was
information
purchased,
in the
how
memo.
much.
Here's why, here's what the reasons were, and
Okay.
just get the commission to ratify those actions.
Yeah, well, this is all influenced by inflation, the salary adjustments,
Yeah.
the equipment procurement numbers, all of that, so
Yep, and
it's related.
it's been years since these numbers have been adjusted. I don't believe they've been adjusted in my time in the administration department. So, again, it's just a response to the
Again,
economics.
What was the number? It went from what to what?
For directors, it went from 50 to 100,000, and for the administrator, it went from 200 to 500,000.
Okay, all right. Move forward. That one did move forward as well. East Century Avenue, we've talked about this before, this reconstruction here to extend East Century up to 52nd Street. We do have a map we could pop up to kind of give some idea of where it lands. But bids were opened last night, or bids were
Bids
awarded.
were shared. They were awarded. Yes, they were open previously and awarded last night. And I can smile when I say this. They were very favorable to the city of Bismarck. Very competitive. Also, we had a number of very qualified bidders and some really good numbers in our to our benefit. So.
So just looking at the map here too, you can see Interstate 94, a little stretch of it in the lower right-hand corner. But this is, again, extending East Century up to that 52nd Avenue, or are we talking about avenue or street up there?
It'd be 52nd Street.
Thank you.
Yep.
But what a great connection.
Right. And
Really helps that area.
key point here, most of this project will be paid for using the half-cent sales tax that the voters approved in 2018-19. And the portion that becomes 52nd Street, that has an alternative funding source because that wasn't originally identified in the project list. But some might say, well, why is it taking so long to get this done? Crossing the coulee for anybody that can still
Yeah,
see
it's
the
not a
screen.
small project.
No, the road terminates right now at a pretty significant ravine, and you can't just jump it. You've got to design
Yeah.
likely not a bridge in this situation, but a series of box culverts so the road can be built over the top. And
Okay.
managing the stormwater is going to be a key piece of this project. But for anybody on this side of town, the Silver Ranch area, it opens up another very important alternative route in and out of that corridor or out of
Yeah.
that neighborhood. So looking forward to seeing that one come together.
And I'm assuming we're starting this spring?
Correct.
This work will start now?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Next on the agenda was Michelle Closey came forward from Public Works talking about industrial pretreatment planning here. She gave basically an update. There was really no action taken.
Correct. And what is industrial pretreatment? I guess those are probably words not a lot of people use every day. And for us, it is managing the waste system before it gets to the wastewater treatment plant. And so pretreatment, as the name implies, really what this is it's outreach to businesses in the community that may be discharging items into the wastewater stream that could disrupt the natural biorhythm that is very important to the processing of the waste products at the wastewater treatment plant on London Avenue. And so January 29th, Michelle indicated a stakeholder meeting and an open house, and the following on the 28th, there will be a presentation at the next City Commission meeting. There will be a presentation to the Commission about this information as well. We have an industrial pretreatment coordinator, Mr. Paul Olson, that he'll be the point on all of this and leading some of that outreach. There will be a ton of information on our website, bismarcknd.gov, and really this is all intended as preventative maintenance. Most people probably don't realize this, but there are certain products and chemicals that, if discharged into the wastewater stream, can have serious consequences for us on the treatment side. And knowing what those chemicals are, working with those producers to safely and meter those discharges, we can handle a lot, but we just can't handle it all at once. And so a lot of this is reaching out, working with those businesses, but we're also interested in fats, oils, and grease. So there's restaurants that have grease traps. We're interested in sand and gravel and oil interceptors, things that you would find in a mechanic shop or in an area where you're working on equipment. There are lots of ways to help prevent that stuff from getting in.
Okay.
And ultimately, it goes through our system and then it's discharged into the Missouri River. So that's why it is so important for us to be able to effectively manage these
Absolutely.
systems.
And from what you describe, it's really not going to affect residential properties. We're talking about primarily business.
Businesses,
Okay.
industry,
Yeah.
users of heavy chemicals, metals, things like that. They're
So can they assume there will be some changes, some different requirements on their part?
not necessarily changes or new requirements, but maybe more awareness and an education, and then an opportunity for some of the staff to visit these businesses and understand how they're dealing with these chemicals, how they're producing them,
How to
or how
help
they're
them.
discharging
Yeah.
them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
going to be a very symbiotic relationship here between the work that Paul is doing and the private sector to make sure that if he can effectively communicate the needs and the concerns at the wastewater treatment plant, hopefully those on the upstream side of it are more mindful when they're dealing with those particular products.
Okay. And I would assume that she'll be back with another update at some point, or Paul will.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, the
okay.
28th, they'll get the full presentation in 2 weeks, and then
Okay.
more of an awareness. And then Michelle and her team are working with Kalen Ost and our communications group here, and it'll be out there.
And no secret, Michelle has announced that she is resigning her position, so there's a search going on for
There
her
is.
replacement at this point in time. So how long do you anticipate Michelle may be in place?
March 7th is
Oh,
her
okay.
last official day, and
Okay.
so the search we are on the search now.
Okay.
Yes.
We won't ask anything particular there. So, yeah. So, last item on the agenda was a legislative update.
Yep.
In which you provided, obviously, North Dakota Legislature is back in session and
full
you're
swing.
monitoring what's going on.
Trying to keep up.
Give us the highlights.
This is my first session as the administrator, and in the past Mr. Hunke and Mr. Woken did a great job managing this and fielding all the testimony. And I'm relying on the help of a lot of people and organizations. The North Dakota League of Cities is a partner organization for us. They are in many ways a lobbyist for the 355 communities of North Dakota.
Association of Counties.
Association of Counties, schools, parks. I mean, we're kind of all in this together.
Well, and your department heads, and you mentioned Ben
Absolutely.
Arith was testifying the other day. So,
Yep.
they know their area.
They do. And to Ben's credit, neither of us were prepared for testimony. And Ben wasn't necessarily testifying so much as he was simply answering their questions.
Sure.
And did a great job because he's got a well-rounded background in public transportation. For us, we've got legislative priorities that we've laid out. There are things like infrastructure funding, Renaissance Zone program, economic development, Bank of North Dakota programs. Obviously, we've got an interest in state aid distribution, and then the big one that everybody's been talking about is property tax relief and property tax reform. And as I said at the podium last night, you know, the November ballot resonated loud and clear with a lot of city leaders. We understand that the residents of North Dakota are looking for more relief, and what does that look like? Well, to the governor and the legislature, it looks like caps on municipal budgets. The proposal right now is 3%. There are many layers to House Bill 1176. It deals with homestead credits. It deals with identifying taxable value. And one of the things that we as the municipal government are interested in is this idea of a 3% budget cap. We're not saying that caps, we understand a cap is coming, but our position is we would like to have a voice at the table to help provide more information and understanding. 3% for us, I mentioned this at the podium at the commission meeting. We know we're looking at a new fire station in the not too distant future, and we have the funds and the resources to build that in great part thanks to the sales tax vote that was approved in Bismarck in November. But also, we have been planning for this and have some money set aside for this particular project. What we don't have set aside would be the ongoing salaries of the 15 firefighters it would take to staff that fire station. A 3% cap on the city's budget would not even be enough money to hire all 15 firefighters to staff that building.
So all these things need to be fleshed out.
Correct.
It's early on.
It is.
This was mentioned last night as well. So
Yeah, Commissioner Zinker said there's no time to panic yet.
Yeah.
We're not hitting the panic button, but we also understand the governor has told the legislature, I would like this as one of the first bills on my desk. And so there is urgency.
Yeah.
And I understand there is a need to demonstrate to the voters that the legislature is trying. We want to help.
But exploring
find the
all
solution.
of those consequences is very correct on the front end, not
Yes.
the back end, because it's sometimes these things get put in place without that forethought. So that's good that we're talking about it.
We are, and I will say this, for many of the staff and even our elected leaders, we have good working relationships with our local state leaders, and that's important. We also understand that not every community has the capital at their back door, and so we need to be present, we need to be testifying, we need to be providing information because we are here.
Well,
And-
exactly, and we've talked about that before, and I know that situation similar in Mandan, that you're here in their doorstep. So they are drawing upon your expertise and your department heads to come in and provide that
Right.
background and help that process
And the
along.
important part of me being able to report to the commission every 2 weeks on the updates, on the bills that are coming and the changes that might be there, it gives them an opportunity to provide direction to me. And that's what I need to be able to testify, is to say, I represent the city commission and these are their thoughts and concerns, comments, suggestions, whatever the case might be.
All right, well, more to come.
More to come.
All
We'll be
right.
doing this till the end of April. We'll do a legislative update as pretty much the last item on every agenda until the legislature is
All right.
concluded.
Stay tuned, right?
You bet.
So I just have a note to mention the 2025 Citizen Academy has started with the City of Bismarck.
We are on
had
to-
one session, or-
We did. Our first session was last week, Thursday. Week 2 will be tomorrow, the 16th. Week 2, we delve into all things finance. This is where we build the baseline information for budgeting. And it gets to be a lot. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of numbers, and it's like night school tomorrow night. We've told them, be prepared. But after this, then we become much more mobile, and we get out to start to see the departments, and we get to the tours. But the information that will be given to them tomorrow will be enriched each week as we go through, because all the departments will key in on how their budget works. Am I an enterprise fund? Am I a general fund?
Yeah.
Do we have fees and charges? And
It's complicated.
It is complicated, but our group is eager. They're engaged. They asked some great questions last week, so we're excited.
I
This
think
is
you've
fun.
been posting on Facebook. I've seen some pictures
Yep.
as well.
That's a little
should be fun.
teaser. We're really proud of this program,
Yeah.
and we would love to be able to offer it to more than just 20 people.
Are you still driving this program, or is Doug Wiles taking over, or what's the
We are sharing
story
the
there?
responsibilities
Okay.
this year. This will
Okay.
be my last tour through all 12 weeks.
Okay.
Doug will get the handoff, but to help him see kind of what I've been doing over the
Sure.
last few years, I think it's good. But we're both taking a very active role. In the past, Doug really only got a peek at 1 week because he was in Public Works service operations, and so he saw the group come through and experienced that. But then that was it. There were 11 other weeks that went on without his awareness, and so Doug
This is
has.
a transition year.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yes, and I'll be pleased to hand it off and watch how it grows and what they do with it from here. I'm taking no ownership in it. It's going to be an exciting year now, and then always looking forward to what more we can do with it.
It's a great project. So congratulations on that, and thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
on this 300 episode of City
Outstanding.
Current.
We should have had like some champagne poppers or
Yeah,
something.
balloon drop or
yeah.
something. All right. Well, thanks for being here. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
My pleasure.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mary.
Take care. And thank you for joining us on this edition of City Current.
For more information on what was discussed in this episode of City Current, visit bismarcknd.gov or call 701-355-1300. If you have suggestions, comments, or issues you would like addressed in future episodes, contact us at info@freetv.org. This program airs on Government Access Channel 2 and 602 in HD, or on Radio Access 102.5 FM. It's also available as a podcast on radioaccess.org and as a video viewing link at freetv.org. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of City Current.